This is the new Astral, and KiwiEars might have made a better version of the meta that you can actually buy. The overall sound of the Astral is well rounded, it's balanced, it has a boost in both the sub bass and the treble air, and it shares a similar DNA as the meta. I am using the regular Tangzu Senkai tips with these, and I recommend using any tips that can tame the treble air a little bit, but more on that later. As for now, versus the meta, the Astral's low end is thumpier with a harder slam and slightly better bass texture, as the drums do feel a little bit more livelier, more engaging, and a little bit more impactful. The mid-range and vocals also feel a little bit more forward and less relaxed versus the metas, which is a little bit brighter leanings and has less emphasis in both the mids and the bass, which as a result, highlights the treble a little bit more, gives it that little bit of sparkliness to the sound versus the more, all-rounded sound of the Astrals. But this doesn't mean the Astral is a vocal-centric set like the Arcanist, since it is still well-rounded, it's an all-rounder, and when it comes to the no weight, the energy, the distance, it's just traditional, you could say. It is more prominent than the meta, but it's not a vocal-centric set. When it comes to the treble, the Astral actually has more treble air than the meta, but the main difference is that because both the low end and the mids are more forward on the Astral, the treble doesn't pop out as much as you would expect. So what you end up getting is a better all-rounder that's slightly airy versus the meta that's more neutral but slightly bright and sparklier when it comes to the treble. The other difference is that the meta feels sharper to me when it comes to the attack, the imaging, because it does have a little more contrast overall. It's slightly less smooth than the Astral because it does have more peaks and dips, which does create a bigger change in the dynamics, more up and downs, gives it that more lively and more energetic listen in the treble region just by a little bit more. But when it comes to technical performance, the Astral edges out the meta slightly when it comes to the bass texture, the vocal clarity, and you do get a little bit more micro details in the treble and the mid-range, and it is great value to performance. It's only $50 more than the meta, making it pretty good pick if you just want tech. However, because of that extra boost in the air region, the Astral's treble can sometimes come off as a little bit wispy on tracks like Model that just has a lot of cymbal, a lot of air. I wouldn't say it's sharp or peaky, but it can definitely get a little bit too airy, a bit fatiguing at higher volumes on the wrong track, like Butterfly by Luda, for example, like K-pop, J-pop, electronic stuff. Tracks with a lot of energy at higher volumes is gonna sound a little bit too much. Because similar to the meta, the Astral is also a mid-volume kind of set around 65 dBs or so, maybe higher on slower, less energetic genres like acoustic, ballads, classical, but I would definitely not blast these because again, the treble past 10K can get a bit hot at higher volumes. Genre-wise, the Astral is an all-rounder, so it does sound good with a lot of genres at mid-volume. You're not gonna be missing any extension or detail in certain regions. The vocals come across clean, extended, natural, and non-fatiguing. The low end is thumpy and it goes deep enough when it comes to the rumble. It has enough impact to the drums for rock, and the treble is extended and pretty airy. If you're looking for an all-rounder with great technical performance under $300, then these would be a pretty solid option, and it's probably gonna go on sale for around $250 to $260. So pretty good upgrade if you have something like the Chopin, the Nova, the Super Mix 4, or just another all-rounder in the lower price regions, and you want a similar kind of balanced all-rounder sound, but just a little bit fuller, a little bit more airy, less shouty in the vocals, and a slight step up in the technical department. Now, compared to the Odyssey, the Astral is cleaner, it has better layering, it's a little bit more detailed, and it's smoother and airier overall. When it comes to just pure technical performance, the Astral is definitely a little bit better than the Odysseys. It also works better at mid-volume for indie, acoustic, instrumentals, classical. It's more mid-centric and the vocals pop out more than the Odysseys, but it also doesn't scale as well as the Odysseys, which is, more engaging, it's fuller, it's slightly warmer than the Astral. It's not warm, but it's slightly warmer when it comes to the low end. It just has more low end, and it works better for pop, metal, R&B, and hip hop. So it really comes down to your library and what volume you listen at. I actually picked the Astrals over the Odysseys in my recent tournament video that I just did because I've been listening to a lot of indie bands and instrumentals lately. So the Astrals for me right now actually works better than the Odysseys. But if I ever switch back to hip hop, R&B, and I wanted something bassier, something fuller sounding, then the Odysseys would have won the tournament instead. So very close. They're on the same tier for me personally when it comes to the overall enjoyment. Compared to some other sets like the Studio 4, Volume S, the Dusk, I would still take the Studio 4 and the Volume S for vocals over the Astrals because they are more mid-centric. It works better as a vocal kind of set, even though this is the better all-rounder, you could say. It's more complete when it comes to the extension in both the low end and the treble, while also being a little more detailed than the Studio 4 and the Volume S. I would say this is equally as technical as the DUSK. And speaking of the DUSK, the Astral is basically a DUSK with more sub bass, better timbre, less sizzly and sharp in the treble, and a little bit more airy instead of that like planariness that the DUSK has. It's not going to be as neutral and lean as the DUSK. If you don't want that much sub bass, I guess the DUSK will still be the better choice if that's your thing, but the Astral does feel more complete and engaging to me, like overall when it comes to the treble and the low end, to the balance. It just sounds a little bit more natural than the DUSK. And similarly, for those who like the clean sound signature of the Pilgrim, but you just wanted a little bit more sub bass extension, a little bit more rumble, more dynamic contrast to the overall sound, then the Astrals would be like the perfect like slight upgrade to the Pilgrim. Again, it's not going to be as neutral and clean as the Pilgrim, but the sense of openness, separation, clarity is very familiar. Tech wise, I would say they're on the same level, but now you just get better extension when it comes to the vocals. You get better sub bass texture, deeper rumble, and less shouty vocals as well. So if you're considering the Pilgrim or the DUSK, I would just get the Astrals. To me, they are a slightly like more complete version of both the Pilgrim and the DUSK. But unless you really like that neutral sound, you could still go for the Pilgrim and the DUSK. Personally though, this is a little bit more complete to me. And speaking of a neutral and balanced sound, the Performer 5+2 is now even harder to recommend because for $50 more, the Astral is just a better version of the 5+2. Tech-wise, it's more detailed, it's more airy, the timbre is better, there's no microplanar sizzle, it's got better bass texture, the slam, like the bounciness, the thumpiness, it's just overall better bass. The vocals have more power and clarity to them, and the sense of stage also feels a little bit more open. Like, this is the issue of companies releasing a forgettable and safe IEM, because as soon as a better all-rounder comes out, the 5+2 for example becomes a little bit irrelevant because it's just not unique enough. Unless you can get a brand new 5+2 for well under $200, so we're talking around like $170, I would just save up for the Astral, or honestly just get the Aether because it's very similar sound wise to the 5+2, but just like better value because it's like $170. But that aside, versus the KiwiEars KE4, the Astral is a lot cleaner. It's way less warm and thick. Like the KE4 makes the Astral almost sound like a neutral set, even though it's not a neutral set. In terms of technical performance, the Astral is a tier above the KE4, just way better in every aspect, better layering, better separation, better texture, more detail, more air. Like if you dig the KE4s and you wanted something more balanced and technical, then the Astrals would be like a good upgrade over those for mid-volume listening. The only area where the KE4 is better than the Astral is when it comes to scaling. It's just a lot more relaxed, it's laid back, it's thicker, it's warmer, you can crank them up a lot more, and it's more of a laid back and cozy type of listening. And similarly, versus the ZIIGAAT LUSH, the LUSH is also smoother, it's warmer, it's more laid back, it scales better than the Astrals, it's less dynamic, but just not as warm and thick as the KE4s. The LUSH is basically a cleaner and more balanced version of the KE4s, but not quite on the same level technically as the Astrals, and it's more of a high volume set, whereas the Astral is more made for mid volume. If you like the LUSH and you want more engagement and rumble when it comes to the sub bass and just like better technical performance overall, more air, better separation, then that's where the Astrals would come in. If you're just listening at higher volumes, I would still say the LUSH is a better fit for that scenario, but overall, for most people who aren't blasting their brains out, the Astrals would be a good upgrade. Now, if you're looking for a more vocal-centric set, the EPZ P50 would be the better vocal all-rounder. It's more mid-range focused, the vocals pop out more, it has less low-end, less treble emphasize, which makes the mid-range and the vocals the main star of the show. As for the male vocals, that would be the TANCHJIM Origin under $300 and the CADENZA 4 for female vocals under $300. Go check out the vocal guide that I just made if you need more info. And as for bassier sets around $300, you got the ESTRELLA, you got the DOSCINCOs, T-Pros, High 4s, lots of options here. You also got the DEUCE if you want more bass head. All of those would be the better option because the Astral just doesn't have enough mid bass to be like thick and warm like the DOSCINCOs or the T-Pros, nor does it have enough sub bass to be like bassier like the ESTRELLAs, the High 4s, or like a super bass headset like the DUSE. Then treble wise, if we're talking just being brighter, sparklier, give the blue nozzle SIMGOT ET142 a try. That's gonna be a lot more contrasty, a lot more dynamic, sharper, less smooth overall, and just more energetic and brighter leaning. You also have the MYER CK2V, which is a better version of the brain damage if you want something that's a little bit more like bright leaning as well, just not as contrasty and sharp as the ET142, a little bit smoother but still pretty bright. However, as an all-rounder, the Astral is pretty hard to beat under $300. The only other contender would really be the Timeless 2 with the silver nozzle, but that's gonna be like smoother, it's gonna be warmer, less well balanced, you know, less detailed, less dynamic, but it is pretty good overall, the Timeless 2. It does have more variety with the nozzles. Value wise, it's still very solid. Sound wise, I would take the Astrals. I just find it a little bit more engaging. The sub bass feels bouncier. The treble air, you get a little bit, you know, better detail, micro details, and overall the separation slightly better than the Timeless 2, but the Timeless 2 is still a very solid option. In conclusion, the Astral to me is the new all-rounder benchmark under $300, and expect them to go on sale for around $260 on Linso. If you're looking for a set that you can just hit shuffle and, you know, everything just sounds great, then these would be it. But yeah, I hope this review was helpful. Solid release from KiwiEars. I'm looking forward to the September as well when that comes out. But that is it for now. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see everyone in the next one. Shout out to Dom Q, Roark's Cat, Mystic Spoon Attack, B Urak, Discal Scaldus, Walker Standard, Patrick, User, Mr. Gorillas, Polly J, Anton Risto, Giseng Yon, Christopher Jackson, Name, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, Obi, Wizard, Frickalicious, Tapis R, Contain Guava Juice Gains, Shrimp Lay, Forever New, Chuckle Norris 420, FKSRG, Treble Well Extended, 777 ZK, Cousin Fat, Torque Cog, Ken, Zane, Early Bird, Oh Really, Georgios, Anthony, and Julius. Thank you guys so much.